Hi everyone, so I started doing something in my sketchbook and I decided to share the rest of the process with you because this is another one of those situations where I want to do something in my journal but I don't have that much time, and I think this is a very quick way of creating something pretty looking in your art journal. So what you will need essentially, I'll just tell you exactly what I've done here. So I followed the rule of three, also known as the triangle, and used three colors, and also the placement of the colors I have done in the triangle shape. So I've got the yellow and so two here, down here, and one up here, and then the turquoise you can see also three. So if you would draw a line to connect them, they would be basically triangles. Now the main color I picked was the Jackson's Artist Watercolor, and this is the Quin purple. Beautiful color. And then I wanted something quite abstract and contrasting, and that's when the Schminke Lemon Yellow came in. And then for the turquoise I used Cobalt Teal, which is this one right here, and it's a beautiful color, and I will link everything down below for you to use. So I also used two different brushes. I have used this one here for this kind of dry brushing effect. So I loaded loads of pigment and very minimal water, and then just kind of went up and down with the brush on the page, and kind of created this interesting dry brush technique. Then I have also used another brush, which is this one here, Silver Black Velvet Round 4, just to kind of push onto the paper to create these brush marks. And final textural purpose was the splatters, which I've done also using this brush but adding more water into the pan and then just splattering it over the page. So that's how far I have come. Now what you will need for the next stage of this process is just a few things which I think probably most of us have if you are into some sort of arting and crafting. So you will need a metallic watercolor. I'm going for the Daniel Smith Iridescent Aztec Gold, which is this one. It's quite unique. It's got sort of like a bronzy gold type of color, and I really like it. So before we crack on, I'm just going to spray quite a bit of water and let it sit, because metallic watercolors tend to be a little bit more harder to wake up than the regular watercolors, because of the shimmers and the pigment being different. So the other thing you will need is a white gel pen. I'm highly recommending this one, which is the Jelly Roll in 08. It's by Sakura. I put mine in this set, which I'll also link below. It has the 05 and 10 in there as well, but I find that the 08 is just like a perfect all-rounder, unless you want it finer or thicker. Then this one you may not have. It's a bit of a kind of like a specialty ink pad, so any white ink pad if you have. I'm going to use this one, which is by Archival, and it's the Brilliance Moonlight White, which, if I'm not mistaken, it's supposed to have like a sheen to it, like a little bit of a pearlescence, but we will find out together because I actually haven't used it since I bought it. And so apart from the pen and the white ink pad, you will need some stamps, and preferably florals, because I just think they're beautiful. This one is quite pricey, as all of the old new are. Well, for us here, if we get it shipped to UK, that is. It's a little bit more affordable if you're from the US, I guess, because you don't have to pay some crazy shipping and import tax and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, pick any floral stamp that you feel like. I recommend something like this where it's just lines and doesn't have much of the pattern inside, because there's going to be a special technique that I want to do with it. Now I may or may not use also a couple of the foliage pieces with it, so haven't decided about that, but that's all you will need. So nice and basic really. So let's start. Okay, so I prepared my block. So if you start with a new stamp that you haven't used yet, I highly recommend that you just take off the tackiness on the back of your hand, and that is it. So just before I'm going to start, I'm going to make sure the watercolor is completely dry. Okay, so let's go into this ink. I'm very excited to see what it's actually like. It doesn't seem like shimmery. I'm not sure why I thought it might be. I think I might have heard somewhere. I don't know. The point is, you're just going to load up. It's nice and juicy. These are really high quality ink pads. So I'm going to put it right in the middle, and I'm going to let it sit just for a few seconds like that, and then I'm going to lift it, and it just looks gorgeous, doesn't it? So the reason I don't want to use a black stamp here, I'm actually going to go over like that and stamp just a few of the ghostings here and there, repeating that rule of 3, I guess, like that. The reason I'm not using a black ink is simply because I don't want anything harsh. I want it to be quite pretty and mild. So from there, I actually am going to now use the foliage bit as well. I have also taken these 2 small foliage bits, which are basically this one here and this one, and I'm also going to repeat the same thing and just stick it on the top here and just stamp it a couple of times. So I'm just going to stamp it and lift it. I'm not too keen on the flowers that I stamped, like ghost stamped earlier, so I'm just going to go ahead and stamp these bits on top, hoping to cover them up a little bit. You can build your foliage parts, and to create more interest, just double stamp them, because it's going to be the most opaque at the first stamp and then least and least with the next, which looks almost like a different stamp altogether. So that's quite pretty. And then I will probably do just one more up here, like so. Again, trying to connect them so they look like they come from outside of one another rather than just stuck there. And actually, for cleaning, because it's a very pigmented ink pad, I would recommend to use a damp tissue and then just kind of take it off like that. Okay, so this one is nice and clean. Now I'm going to go into the second one. This is basically the same one, but just the outline, so it creates a bit more interest. There we go. And just looks different. Again, I'm focusing on the rule of 3, so I'm placing some of them here, some of them here and there. So I wouldn't go and start adding a 4th one just because it would be way too much. So another one up here possibly, and that should be maybe enough. And then some ghost stamping just going up to the paper. You won't see that much anyway. So I quite like when it sort of is overlaying some of those watercolors. And let's see, I'll put this one just down below here. Okay, that's enough. Now I am going to show you a close-up. Let me just clean up this real quick. Right, so this is what it looks like, nice and up close. You can see the difference of these leaves compared to the other ones. It looks really pretty with having it on a watercolor background. So this is now done. It looks very lacy and very airy. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to, before I finish, I'm going to take my gel pen and show you the next step. Alright, so the final, or almost the final step, I will also go back to that gold watercolor in a minute. But just before, what we're going to do is we're going to practice line work, and we're going to start in the middle of the petal and just go down like so. I'm going to zoom you in so you can actually see what I'm doing here, like that. There we go. I hope you can see well enough. So starting in the middle of the petal and then curving the line towards the middle, like so. So again, in the middle, and then just doing the line work like so.
We came to an end that put up this fence, but do you really mean that this is the end? 1, 2, 3 years of silence, then 4, 5, 6, still nothing. When my hair gets green, I lose my shape.
So continue with the lines, and the slower you go, the more pretty it will be. But I'm just, like I said, I'm a little bit short on time, so I'm doing it a little bit quick. And once you have filled in all the lines, you'll see that it will look a lot more complicated and hand-drawn than just stamping a perfect looking flower. So just, the key is, like I said, is just following precision, because if you'll start making random lines, it will look very much unneat and like you have no idea what you're doing. Just follow the same direction, like so.
A phase that you were just dramatic, that we still could be good, that our love is elastic. I'll make this right if you give me a chance. Oh, I did it wrong and you did it right. Yeah, that's what you said when you started the fight. We came to an end, I put up this fence, but do you really mean that?
Alright, so this is pretty much it. So these are a little bit complicated. I probably would leave them untouched. And the final thing that I'd like to do is take my, where is it, here. So you need a small brush for this, and at this point, oops, sorry. So this is what I'm doing here. The watercolor, and it's quite, as you can see, loaded on the brush. And I'm just going to add it. Like here into the middle, and maybe on some of the petals as well. Again, just to repeat that rule of 3, just in a few spaces, not too many. So just randomly pick a couple, and that is it, like so. Then if you really want it opaque, just go over it a couple of times. And we're almost there. So you will need a brush with a fine tip for this one, because you want the petals to look quite pretty. Again, in the center, I wouldn't do too much. Just a little tiny bit, and possibly actually on some of the petals here and there. Yes, that's quite nice. I probably would do it just on one side to create that illusion of shadow. Like so. And a little bit here. Okay, so that is it. And it does look rather pretty now. I'm going to dry it quickly and show you the dried version. Okay, so here we are, all done. And you can see how beautiful this looks. It's a very easy way of filling a page in your journal, and just start with some, you know, brush marks and strokes and things like that. And yeah, you would never guess that this was a kind of purchased stamp, so you can definitely make it your own just by doing some line work. And it's also very therapeutic indeed. Just as a little tip, what I did off camera actually is I went over those petals where I had the gold with the jelly roll just to bring out the lines again. It makes it look a little bit more neater and kind of like it was meant to be there, rather than before it kind of, I don't know, I didn't like how it looked. So yeah, I am happier here. Also added in the center a few more dots with the gel pan, which kind of breaks it up nicely rather than just having a gold blob there. Also lined out the leaves to make them look again more finished. As you can see here, that bit of detail added is quite nice. And now basically these gold leaves stand out more than here, and here I just have the center stand out and very subtle gold coming from underneath the gel pen, which looks a lot better to me. So that's a little tip for you, and thanks for watching. See you soon.